Welcome to Melt University's 2020 summer program. This year, our virtual intern program will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Here's your host, President and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students. Summer 2020, Virtual Melt University. We roll on. We've had an amazing summer so far. Thank you guys for listening and tuning in. Great advice, words of wisdom from some of the industry's great leaders, my dear personal friends, hoping they're sharing amazing inspirational advice with you. And I was really looking forward to today's podcast with my really dear friend, TJ Abrams, who currently serves, and I think he's wearing probably a lot of hats as head of global brand strategy for Intercontinental Hotel Group, Holiday Inn Hotels. Intercontinental Hotel Group is one of the largest hoteliers in the world. Many brands that you are famous, that you are familiar with. Intercontinental, Holiday Inn Express, a lot of new ones. And obviously this is a very challenging time for the hotel industry, as well as TJ, but has been a very dear friend for many years. We first met while he was at the Coca-Cola company, and we talked about students, the value and importance of relationships, maintaining relationships, continuing to build your network. And TJ is a leader. He's worked for some of the greatest brands in the world. Like I said, we first started having fun together in Coca-Cola Zero. Then he rose to brand marketing with Coca-Cola, Big Red, continued to rise with Sprite and adult. Sprite's one of the great vaunted brands of the Coca-Cola company, as you know. Then has gone over to Intercontinental as a leader. We've worked together. One of his main jobs was introducing a lot of new and emerging hotel properties with Intercontinental, particularly Avid and Atwell, among others. And he's got a great, interesting background. And we talk about servant leadership. We talk about working with people who share your values and those types of things. And he is a graduate, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and an MBA from the school at Duke University. Pretty heavy awards, as well in education. Chairman of the Board of Trustees for the Abrams Family Foundation, on the board of Ron Clark Academy, which is another amazing educational opportunity institution, advisory board for Coca-Cola Scholars. And like I said, just, TJ really walks the walk, talks the talk, and this is going to be a great one today. So TJ, welcome so much to Virtual Melt University. We're glad to have you today.
Thanks, Benny. Great to be here, and great to be here with you and the Melt U crew this summer.
Well, we've learned from a lot of the great ones. We've learned from some of your great colleagues who've been on, Seth Freeman, Shannon Watkins. We've just had some amazing guests, some of your Coke alumni, but we like to sort of step back. And we really like to talk about, because one thing, TJ, we tell our kids that the campus is the ultimate professional laboratory. The campus and your days at college is the first time you pursue your passion, but also you can go to college intent on pursuing one career direction or one career path, and you find out you may not like that and you shift to another one. So tell us about your early days at Chapel Hill University of North Carolina, one of my favorite places. What was the intent when you started there from a passion perspective, and what, because that's a pretty unique degree, PR with a minor in Spanish. Carter, my son, studies Spanish at a high level as well. So that's a fairly unique combo. Did you have something particularly in mind?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Vinny. So I landed at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill from Washington, D.C. So I was the D.C. guy that landed down south. First time really spending any quality time, significant time down south. And for me, I fell in love with the people. And so when I got to UNC, I saw a school in which people who looked like me were in leadership. So I saw people of color in student leadership roles. I
Mm-hmm.
saw a ton of organizations that were doing great work. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it would be a place that would just really open up my eyes to what the world could really offer.
Mm-hmm.
And you asked me how I landed on journalism. I landed on journalism because I fell in love with the idea of the power of telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the journalism school allowed me to think about how to tell those stories and connect with people in really compelling ways. There's nothing that can beat communication. I don't care what job you're in, whether you're in sales or you're a teacher or you're in business. Communication is key. And so the journalism program, in particular with a public relations sort of focus, was my
Mm-hmm.
passion point early on. But as I delved into the work world quickly, my first internship was actually in marketing at Abbott Laboratories in 2002. And what I realized when I jumped into marketing, I was like, oh, wow, this business angle, emerging sort of the idea to tell stories, but from a business angle, really fueled a passion in me that I didn't know I had. And so that's how I ended up merging sort of PR with where I've landed and spent all of my career in, which is marketing.
Mm-hmm. And so you were an intern at Abbott, and then how many years before you went back to Duke University?
Oh wow! For my MBA,
Mm-hmm.
so it was probably 8 years.
So we
Uh,
get a lot. We get a lot of questions from kids, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this. Do you feel like it's advantageous to come out of undergrad and gain that work experience, or do you feel advantageous to go right through? And then obviously we're going to start asking a lot of these questions in a COVID and a post COVID era as well, because this whole game is going to change a lot coming back. But it obviously benefited you to stay in the workforce and then step back into the world of NBA. Correct?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I actually was one of the younger students in my MBA class because I only had a couple years between graduating undergrad, and going to business school.
Mm-hmm.
But for my first internship, the internship I talked about, that's why I said it was 7, 8 years. But I'm a big advocate, Vinny, of making sure students go get experience, even if it's just a year or two of experience. A year or two in the workplace allows you to really learn what you like, what you don't like when you're paying your own bills and you're working and reporting to someone else. Getting that experience and that exposure
Mm-hmm.
really gives you a different perspective, so that when you go to business school, not only do you contribute in a stronger way to that school community, because the discussions in the classroom, the organizations you'll lead, you're bringing your own unique experience to the other experiences that are there with the student body. But also, as you think about the goal of going to any sort of postgraduate program, which is to get the job you want, that pre-business school experience will allow you to get the more senior roles that you ideally would want to compete for.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big
Well,
advocate of going and getting that experience.
and kind of getting out in the real world, gaining some perspective, getting your knees skinned a little bit, not just jumping from the undergrad classroom into a master's classroom as well. And we see, and I think a lot of students need to hear this, but we see a lot of corporations, particularly Coca-Cola and others, who prefer that you have some real world experience and then gaining your MBA, correct?
Definitely, it depends upon the company. I will say, there's no one path, and uh, especially in entertainment and sports, right? There are different paths in entertainment and sports than there may be sort of on the client side of the business versus in the creative agency world. So it kind of depends upon what path you're on, and
Mm-hmm.
whether or not. I would never be one to say that you need an MBA for every sort of
Right.
career trajectory, but for those who have a clear vision of where they want to go, and you know that the MBA will help differentiate you and really get you to your long term goal. Without a doubt, I'm a big advocate of
Well, and we're getting asked a lot, particularly in this COVID world, and I think you just answered that, but validate it, is that if you can afford it from a time and money perspective, the value of that, con, uh, more education, more training, more masters, is going to, because a lot of students ask us, do you really think it's worth it today in today's workforce? But you're clearly an advocate of that, correct?
I'm an advocate of it for the right roles, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I mentor folks all the time. I have a number of active mentees right now that are trying to figure out uh, what sort of pivot they'll make, if they'll jump to another company or go back to business school. And you've got to have some vision, right? You've got to have a point of view of where you want to go, and be clear that the investment in business school, both on time and
Mm-hmm.
resource, makes sense for where you're trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, then what's the right pathway that you should take to sort of get to that long-term
Mm-hmm.
plan? And the idea of creating a vision sometimes is scary for folks, but I always tell my mentees, like, no one's going to hold you to it. You always have the opportunity to change what you want to be when you grow up, right? But at the
Mm-hmm.
point in which you have to make decisions, you've got to start being willing to sort of put a line in the sand and
Mm-hmm.
really think through, show you can think through where you want to go and take your career.
Well,
If you can do
you
that
hit
for
on.
yourself, right, then you'll be able to do it for your businesses and the people in the communities that you'll lead as you move down
Well,
the road.
you just hit on a big thing, because we tell our kids, we're like, hey, look, we know it's going to change. We know life's not linear. We know, particularly in this crazy COVID world, it's, you're these kids are, being thrown into the tumble cycle at an early stage of their career. But you hit on the nail on the head. Is we say, hey, identify your passion, identify your vision, lay out sort of your own, and that's the title of my book, Building Brand You, but lay out your own brand vision and brand strategy for yourself, and allow that to sort of become, your guide in the process. Correct?
Correct. You are spot on. They're lucky to have you leading them in that
Well,
way.
we're trying, and you've hit on so many things that we talk to our kids a lot about. So we're just going to dive right into it before we talk about your career. The importance of mentors in all of our lives, young, old, whoever they are. You've had some tremendous mentors. You're a tremendous mentor to people, as I have. You and I learn from each other on a lot of different things. But talk to our kids about not only the importance of mentors, but how do you seek the right mentors out?
So honestly, the it depends upon where you are. Sometimes if you're when you're in school, you'll have opportunities to get mentors through programs that you join, and or through leadership roles that you take on. So really pay attention to the people around you. But in the professional world, as you just jump out of school or you're in an internship, sometimes you actually have to proactively reach out and express in a very pithy manner, sort of your interest in learning more, and
Mm-hmm.
ask. I always say, it's really hard for people to turn down the request for a 15-minute coffee chat or a 30-minute
Mm-hmm.
discussion. So start with the first discussion, and then see where that discussion takes you,
Mm-hmm.
and ask for a commitment for a continued sort of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think about uh, the leaders and how you connect with people, really, I always tell people, listen to the people that care about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So look around you, whether you're in school, in an organization, and you're working for someone, or you're in an internship or in a corporate world. Like, who are the people that are actually taking time proactively to give you feedback, to show up for the meetings that you're scheduling or that you're requesting to be in. And those
Mm-hmm.
are the people that you should be more open to than ever, and listening when they're giving you feedback, and sort of searching for those who may be more willing to give back and stay connected to you long term.
Well, and that's the thing we talk about, is that is that you need to seek out mentors and organizations that sort of share your value system, And because if you go to work for an organization that doesn't share your value system, the outcome typically won't end well. But talk about how you handle a mentor-mentee relationship. What are the good things that you've seen out of previous mentor-mentee relationships? Because I know you're a huge advocate of this. You've helped many people. Um, Tell me what you're looking for that's going to segue me into another question here. But what are you looking for when somebody approaches you to be their mentor?
So the first thing I'm looking for is ambition and commitment. Meaning, do you have a desire to go from point A to point B, and are you really willing to commit to the process and the feedback to getting there? If the two aren't there, then it's normally not really a good fit for me to sort of help you there in a mentor like capacity. We can always have a chat or conversation, but in a mentor capacity, I'm usually looking for those two initially. But then along the way, I'm typically looking for how you manage the relationship. So when you show up, do you show up prepared, right, with real clarity on what you want to accomplish and how I might be able to help you for that discussion? And do you show up, with a very thoughtful sort of perspective and questions, right? Because no one expects you to sort of know everything, but we do expect you to sort of think through what might be required for you to get to point A or point B, what hurdles you may be facing, and what you may be, what's keeping you up at night, and what are the passion points that you haven't been able to connect the dots, but where I can sort of help you with. So I look for thoughtfulness too, and just the depth of the conversation that will come.
Well, you hit on a big topic we talk to a lot of our students about, is that every interaction that a mentee or a reach out on LinkedIn, or a job or internship, virtual internship, is in itself a form of an audition, because that person is helping shape and frame your opinion and perception of that person. And so we talk a lot about sort of knowing your target, knowing the company. If you were wanted to go to work for IHG, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes, you need to know everything about that organization, and so many flags and so many franchises and the opportunities within that. But as a mentor, and you got a lot of mentees out there, and we talk about preparation, we talk about knowing your target, but if somebody, I always kind of like to teach our students sort of the tricks of the trade. So if somebody is reaching out to TJ Abrams on LinkedIn, or they happen to track your email down, or they find your mailing address, what things get your attention that would provoke you wanting to respond to a prospective student, intern, job candidate, mentee? What are the things that, because we always like to hear it from the pros, what gets the pros' attention in these now environments? Because, by the way, and I tell our kids this all the time, if you're not on LinkedIn, it's the greatest professional networking tool on the planet. You've got a massive Rolodex on LinkedIn. I've got a massive Rolodex. Our Rolodexes are connected to one another. That emotional connection, hey, TJ, I know you're friends with Vince. I'd like to talk to you 15 minutes online or something like that. Talk about what gets TJ's attention.
Yeah, no, I love that question, honestly, because so many of us get solicited through LinkedIn, and it's tough. It's another form of email, right? Like, how do you sort of weed through to figure out who you're going to respond to? And for me, the few that actually are able to sort of break through are the ones that are specific. So someone will reach out and say, "Hey, I'm at this point, and based on your career, I'd love to get your feedback on how I get to that point." So I'm in sports, and I see that led sports at multiple companies. Would love to get your feedback on sports, right? Actually, I've always wanted to work in hospitality, but don't have any experience. And I saw that you had a similar background. Could you help me think through how to navigate how to get into hospitality. So those specific sort of questions in the intro text that you can put in when sending a request are important. But then also, I'm always inspired, right? I'm a student of life and definitely as a marketer, people and industry and consumers. I'm also inspired by people who send me work or send me ideas and things that they're working on that they
Bingo.
want to share that's relevant. And I've had a couple interesting conversations where people say, "Hey, this is what I'm working on. Would love to get your thoughts and connect to see what what you think about this, or what I could do to sort of take it one step further." Those tend to get a quick response from me also.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And this is one of my pet peeves, and we talk to our students a lot about it, is that I'll get tons of resumes in our generic website that says, hey, this is Joe Smith, and here's my resume, and I need to make X amount of dollars a year. And I automatically flush them because they're already showing me what type of employee they would be and what type of teammate they would be, and they'd flunk the audition as opposed to saying, hey, Mr. Thompson, War Eagle, congrats on building a great sports marketing organization. I have a passion for social media, and I think I can bring and add value to your organization through this channel. So think about the differentiation, and again, you've hit on it, and not necessarily even particularly leaders at your level and my level. Not necessarily just bombing with a resume, but sometimes saying, hey, I want to learn from you. I'd like to seek some advice. Do you have time for a 10-minute Zoom call or those types of things? I mean, we talked about that in today's Lunch and Learn from the book. It's that our kids are going to have to be relentless in this market now because there's so many people in unemployment that are going to be willing to take lesser jobs for lesser wages to get back in the workforce game. So it's going to just infinitely make the entry-level job market that much harder, particularly in hard-hit industries such as mine and yours, hospitality, travel, tourism, sports events, and live events. And so we talk about, here are the things that are going to get my attention for a future engagement or a future relationship. And talking about that, the importance and value of maintaining, building, and nurturing relationships, because you and I are sort of the poster child for that, is that, we may go 6 months without talking to one another, and then you'll reach out to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about you on here, or I'll reach out to you and say, hey, I got a good kid to send you, or something like that. But I want you to tell to our students from your perspective the value of the relationships and the networking and how it's really an ongoing process.
Yeah, you can't replace the value of really strong relationships. You'll need them all throughout your career. And Benny, one thing that I think that has kept our relationship so strong, and you as a leader of a phenomenal agency organization, is just the energy you bring, right? Mm-hmm. So I hope you're talking to them about how they show up, right? First impressions matter, the energy that you bring to that first impression, but then to the relationship overall as you continue to try to invest in it or want someone to invest in you. It's really important that you show up with that sort of energy and passion, and that will allow someone to actually want to invest even more in whatever you are looking to get from them. So I think that's really important. I would tell you, for me, the relationships and mentors that I've had tend to be pretty long-term relationships with the ones that really matter, right? And I find that when I build the right relationships, whether it is 6 months, as you said, Vinny, or 3-4 years, when I need them, I'm able to pick up the phone and call them. And at that point, it really matters. And they know that they can do the same for me. And so never, ever, ever underestimate the value of a relationship in a moment, because you never know how it might pay off for you 5-10 years down the road. So take each relationship and cherish it as a gift, even though there are seasons to relationships, right? And people come in and out, but you take care of it in the right way, and that sowing that seed now always has a potential to bear fruit later.
Well, and that's the thing is that you've got to take the long view or the big picture of any relationship, and you've got to continue to nurture that relationship, even if it's just checking in and saying, "Hey, man, how you doing through this crazy stuff? Thinking about you. Hit me back." And just the fact that you just went to that little bit of effort and attitude to maintain those relationships, because and my old man has a saying, TJ, is that used to be 24/7. The ball turned around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but now it's like 24 minutes and 7 seconds. I mean, it's moving at the speed of sound. And speaking of that, you are with one of the largest hotel, travel, destination tourism companies in the world. There are tremendous amounts of opportunity in there, but where do you see in a post-COVID world where there will be opportunities in the travel and destination and hospitality industry for our kids who may be looking into those types of careers in a post-COVID world?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the travel industry is resilient, right? And we are in a time like we've never seen before, and hopefully we'll never see again once we get through this. So I think all students that are interested in getting into hospitality should know that whether you're interested in sales or operations or designing hotels or running brands like I'm doing, there will be opportunity down the road. But in the short term, we what we see is more and more of our hotels opening up every day. So I think at the hotel level, there's nothing that can replace starting to understand the business, looking at front desk jobs, looking at sales roles at your local hotel and the local community, and finding ways to just better understand the operations part of our business from the ground up. And then as we think about medium to long term, once we get through COVID, we have internship programs that we offer students to give a wide variety of experiences in corporate world. So everything from traditional corporate experiences in HR, finance, and marketing to very unique and bespoke hospitality industry experiences that happen in our operations team and in our development team, where you're out selling hotels to new owners, and our design organizations. So there'll be a lot of opportunity, but as you said, with COVID, it will take time for us to get back to the vast number of opportunities that we've experienced over the last couple of years.
Well, you know what? You just hit on something that I really have not thought about or talked about during any of our podcasts, but in any college town, there are usually a lot of great hotels, university hotels, great flags and franchises. Like, one of my favorites at Auburn is the Holiday Inn Express on College Avenue as you're coming in off of I-85. But there are a ton of opportunities for students to get real live. And I experience that when I check in a lot of these hotels I travel with SEC and everything, that for students to just get on those front lines, be on that front desk, to check in, customer service, front line, room service, all those kind of things. So to our students, when you go back to school and you're considering a career in the hospitality business, there's so many great opportunities in those local college communities to begin gaining that valuable experience. Because TJ, and I know you do this too, when I travel to these university towns and these students are working these front counters, I always like to learn their stories, and then I like to see how they engage with me. And then if I see a common interest in sports, I'll go, well, by the way, I run a sports marketing firm. Let me know if I can help you. And so
it's a great way to meet people, right?
I tell you what, well, think about this. If you're working a Holiday Inn Express in Auburn, you got a lot of really good alumni probably coming in and out of those hotels. So to your point, being on that, we say that the lowest hanging fruit, if somebody reaches out to you, is that emotional connection. Hey, I went to Carolina. Hey, I went to Duke. Like they're showing you that A, they've done your homework on you, and B, they're making an emotional connection because you love the Tar Heels and you love the Blue Devils. So I think that's a big one you just hit on. And one thing that like I said, I've always.
Vinny, I do have to clarify one thing. Okay. I love the Tar Heel. Never ever have I said I love the Blue Devils.
Okay, so we got to clear that up really quick, because
I'm a Duke Pupil School of Business guy, but you can only be on one side of the fence as it relates to sports.
Well, that's kind of like Auburn and Alabama. You realize that, right? So,
Yeah.
so yeah. So you and I, so we sort of share that as well. But I get a lot of grief when I go down to Tuscaloosa and do a little work. But yeah, I think that's good to clarify. I'm gonna get on my researchers because they didn't call that out. But one thing that I've always loved about working with you, not only just your kind touch, but you just have a high standards and high values and being on the board of trustees at Ron Clark and alumni advisory board for Coach Scholars, which that's a great program as well. Talk to our kids about starting now with the importance of working with causes, working with passions, working with community organizations, and really beginning to sort of help give back because we've all, I kind of live by a mantra to much has been given, much is expected. But talk about your sort of philosophy and why it's important for students to think about that right now.
Yeah, you want to be able to bring your whole self to work environments, and when you bring uh, all parts of you, meaning that TJ is not just a marketer, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm a father, I am a husband, I am an educator, education activist, and board member in the community. When I'm able to really bring my full self to my job, I actually find that I'm better at how I lead and how I interact with people by exposing and sharing my stories from all parts of me. So I would say you've got to find something you're passionate about and really try to be the best at making an impact in that space. So for me, that's education, and that's why you can name multiple educational organizations that I'm really passionate about and
Mm-hmm.
really fuel who I am as a leader. And one of the things that Ron Clark, who is one of
Love
the most
him. Love him.
phenomenal leaders that I've ever had a chance to work with professionally or in the nonprofit world is, he always talks about no fear, right? And this idea of don't take the stairs, which is the traditional approach, but he has a slide in his school, and he says take the slide, right? And really enjoy the ride and
Mm-hmm.
be don't be afraid to step out and do something different. And so for me, what I find is that as I dig into the things I'm really passionate about, one, I learned that I can help others, and there's something fulfilling and purpose driven for me, and being able to help others in the space of education.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I learned that I'm a better leader, a better father, a better husband by giving and serving in that way. So I would say, go find a thing you're passionate about, whether it's health and fitness or education, or in this age, really working on inclusion and diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what you can do. Try to be the best at it, right? And continue to build your resume of experiences that allow you to tell your story and keep building on your story.
Well, and you hit on something too, is that if because this is you can figure it out pretty easy, but if somebody knows that you have this passion for education and helping others and the community, and Ron Clark's amazing, if they would bother to take the time to research that about you and then use that as a hook or as an intro when they're reaching out to you on LinkedIn, chances are you're going to respond to that request. I mean, that's just it's pretty common sense, but we're trying to enlighten our students on this. It's the same thing that you and I do when we're calling on a customer or calling on a provider or supplier or vendor. And so I think that's really good because, like I said, I've always loved that about you. And as we wrap today, we always like to, because it's just fascinating the answers that we get, but talk about some of your, and not necessarily just present go-tos, but some of your long-term go-tos, whether it be some good books or leadership or podcast or resources. I'm always fascinating to learn what are your good go-tos that you can share with our students.
Oh wow, that's a great question. There's so many out there
Right.
that are really important, but I would say one of the ones, especially at the college age, I think it is so relevant is the first 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
That book helps you think through how you really maximize the first 90 days of any new interaction or
Mm-hmm.
experience that you're engaging to, and the relationships you need to build, how you get a win under your belt, right? And there's multiple really, really good things that I actually go back to and remind myself, okay, I'm starting this new role. What do I need to do to set myself up for the long run while really taking advantage of the first 90 days? But then a couple
I love that one, and I think in any relationship, professional, personal, job, or anything, you really set that tone and pace with that first 90 days. I love that one.
Yeah, the only I have two other that I'll share. The first is lean startup. So there's something in an innovation and growth mindset sort of world of really understanding the ideas of lean startup principles and how to think about that and being an innovator and disruptor. That I think is really valuable. And then the last one, and I use this one with every team that I lead and I onboard. It's one of my key principles as a leader, but I refer to leadership principles from the art of war. And I talk about being brave, being trustworthy, and being disciplined. And if I had to leave your Melt U students with anything, it's like be brave in everything that you do. Always be trustworthy, because that's how you build relationships and you make things happen. And be disciplined in approach. And if you can combine the three, it's a winning formula for not only you leading people, but you being able to accomplish everything that you want to accomplish in this world.
Well, it's interesting because the art of war has survived generations and hundreds of years of readings and revisions and translations, but it's still a lot. And that title is very deceptive. But right now, life's a war, business is a war, virus is a war. But to your point, we are going to get to the other side of this, and I love the art of war. I love the first 90 days, as well. So this has been just so we could go on all day. Don't want to take up too much of your time, but it's been so delightful. So to our students and our listeners, I think you can hear just that very subtle, quiet passion and energy in TJ's voice, and as we're finding with so many people we've talked about, their success is not an accident. They've led a purpose-driven life, a service-driven life, values-driven life, and to be talking to the head of global brand strategy for Intercontinental Hotel Group, Holiday Inn, which is the most vaunted brand name in hotel in the country, and during this period, and talking to him about, like I said, TJ's very understated, but he has been chosen to launch all the new brands within Intercontinental, which is not a light assignment. When you talk about the gestation of a brand within a hotel or any organization, it takes many, many years to birth those brands. He went through that same path as a leader with Coca-Cola Company, Coca-Cola, Sprite, Coke Zero. But I do think that what our students have heard is that everything that he does is grounded in purpose and grounded in values. And I encourage all of our listeners to reach out to TJ. He is so generous with his time, so gracious, amazing insight. We always have fun together when we are working together, because we challenge each other on so many levels. But TJ, we just so appreciate your time and wisdom and sharing with our students, because you're going to make an impact on some students' lives after they hear this.
Thank you. No, this is, if I was talking to your students, I would say this is your time. Don't waste it. And we can't wait to watch what you do with it. So thanks for having me on today.
So TJ Abrams, Intercontinental Hotel Group, one of my favorite people, my friends, my partner, my brother. We appreciate your time today. Summer 2020 Virtual Melt University, we roll on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.